All right, today we're going to be covering respiratory safety for painters, and we're going to be covering the different options you have to ensure that you don't get exposed to the harmful chemicals that are in your paints. And we'll also be covering some of the often not understood or overlooked things when it comes to respiratory safety in painting. So when it comes to painting, your paints contain a variety of chemicals that are harmful and can create deadly results to you over time of exposure as your work and career as a painter. So when it comes to filtering out those contaminants, there are a few options that you have that you can consider. First is a standard respirator like you see here. These have carbon cartridges that filter out the odors and chemicals that are dangerous to you. The challenges with these options include that to make ideal use of them, you really need a proper fit test that should be done annually to ensure that you've selected a mask size and that you're actually sealed properly so that you know you're not being exposed to the harmful chemicals in your coatings. Additionally, you have the carbon cartridges that need to be protected from the element of natural air in between uses, so you need to store these in a sealed bag for best results or change out the carbon cartridges regularly. Finally, you have the fact that some chemicals do not have an odor or a taste. So if you're spraying paint with isocyanate in them, that's an odorless, tasteless, and very harmful chemical to you as a painter. And a lot of common paints today contain that chemical. You can check your MSDS for the coating to see if that's contained in the paint you're commonly spraying. To combat that, you have to maintain a strict change-out schedule and ensure that your carbon cartridges are replaced regularly enough so that you don't get any exposure to the isocyanate that might be in your coating. Finally, you have the fact that over the day's use, this can be a lot to deal with, sucking in air through the cartridges that do provide a resistance, which obviously as a painter can cause a lot of extra work on you and your lungs as you're working. Overall, though, they're a very cost-effective route and they're very basic and very simple to use. So as a starting point and as a general safety practice, these are ideal and are a needed item in your painting toolkit. Now from there you have other options like you see here. This is an oil-free pump. So there's no oil that lubricates this pump. So we don't have to worry about carbon monoxide as long as you place this outside of any area that may have a carbon monoxide source. Like if this was placed near a running car or something similar, you could be exposed to carbon monoxide. But assuming that you place this in an area where there's only fresh air to be supplied, this would connect to a hose, to a hood similar to this. There's a variety of hoods. A hood like this doesn't require fit testing because it's not sealed to your face. The positive pressure air will push air down and keep you from being exposed to any harmful chemicals in your paint. Overall, it's a comfortable way to spray, and you don't have to worry with a free air pump like this with change-out schedules of any filters because it doesn't have any filtration going on. It's simply supplying you with free, fresh air. Now, if you have a compressor, you can deliver air via a standard compressor, but you have to monitor for carbon monoxide and you have to filter that air for any oil and water contaminants to deliver grade D breathing air. It's a little bit of a less common application for painters, so we won't go into great detail here. You can refer to our video on respiratory safety for sandblasters and painters if you want more info on that. Now the other option you have to consider is what we call a powered air purifying respirator. And that's what you can see here as shown there. Now to use a respirator like this, there's a few things that are important to understand. First, these are rated for Class 1 Div 2 areas. This is an EVA HL, hazardous location, powered air purifying respirator. So Class 1 Div 2 is actually not a paint booth. So if you're in a paint booth, this wouldn't be applicable. For most other paint applications, it could potentially be okay. For site work that you might be doing cabinetry, this is another route. Now the benefit to this over the free air pump is that you don't have to have a hose to drag because the unit straps to your back. However, much like your standard respirator that you're using every day, or most painters are very familiar with and using every day, there still has to be a carbon filter on this to be able to filter the air coming to you as a painter right now for a 6-pack of those are about $100 per carbon filter. So you have the cost of that filter on top of the cost of the PAPR itself, which is around $1,400 to $1,600 depending on the unit and some of the configurations. This system as a whole package with the hood and 50-foot of hose is around $1,400, and you don't have any real replacement cost on filters or anything. The pump just goes and you keep that outside of the area of any danger. So really you have the 3 choices. You have a PAPR with a carbon cartridge. You have the Respirator that also requires filter changes and monitoring. Both these would be needing monitoring for any isocyanates. If you are exposing yourself to those, you have to have frequent change out. And then you have the free air pump system that enables you to feed air from the outside of the area of painting or sanding or whatever work you're doing, and delivers fresh, pure air, prevents you from having any potential exposure to any harmful chemicals, and is really ideal because of that. But each of these routes are options you have to ensure that your safety is proper while you're painting. And so if you have questions on any of these options or whether one's better for what you're doing, you can leave them in the comments below. Again, thanks for watching.